Do you know how many women have been ensnared by the phantom of unfulfilled potential, drawn into the labyrinthine depths of a man's projected shadow? It's a silent epidemic, an ancient dance where the masculine soul, often unbeknownst to itself, casts its darkest secrets onto the unsuspecting canvas of a woman's heart. Imagine, for a moment, the allure of the enigmatic, the dangerous charm of a man whose wounds whisper promises of profound connection, whose unresolved traumas seem to beckon a healing touch. You, perhaps, have felt that gravitational pull, that subtle yet undeniable urge to delve into his complexity, to decipher the unwritten chapters of his pain. This isn't merely attraction. It is a primal call, a resonance with the unconscious depths where archetypes slumber and shadows lie in wait. The masculine soul, in its rawest form, often grapples with a formidable darkness, the unacknowledged aspects of self, the denied weaknesses, the suppressed rage, the unmourned losses. These are the fragments of the shadow, as Carl Jung so profoundly articulated, the personal unconscious repository of everything a man deems unacceptable or unworthy within himself. And what happens to these banished elements? They do not vanish. They fester, they calcify, and in their desperate bid for integration, they manifest. Sometimes, they manifest as toxic behaviors. Control, manipulation, sudden outbursts of irrational anger, or a chilling emotional detachment. Other times, they project, casting their internal demons onto the nearest available screen, often the woman who stands before them. Consider the man who struggles with his own perceived inadequacy. He may project this fear of not being enough onto you, demanding constant reassurance, or paradoxically, devaluing your achievements to elevate his own fragile ego. He is not consciously seeking to diminish you. His unconscious, however, sees in your light the stark reflection of his own darkness, and it recoils. Or perhaps he harbors a deep-seated fear of commitment, rooted in early abandonment wounds. This isn't merely a preference. It's the shadow of his vulnerability, the terror of surrendering to true intimacy. He will push away what he most desires, creating an emotional distance that feels like a cruel game, but is, in essence, a desperate attempt to protect his wounded inner child. This dynamic often leaves a woman feeling depleted, questioning her own sanity, perpetually striving to meet an ever-shifting, undefinable standard. You find yourself walking on eggshells, tailoring your existence to appease a phantom, to mend a brokenness that is not, and never was, yours to fix. This is the insidious nature of ego projection, the unconscious defense mechanism where one's own undesirable traits, feelings, or impulses are attributed to another person. He sees his own rage in your spirited response, his own insecurity in your pursuit of success, his own deceit in your honest inquiry. It's a tragic irony, for in projecting, he simultaneously alienates himself from the very parts of himself that crave recognition and integration. The journey of individuation, the path to psychological wholeness, demands a courageous confrontation with these shadows. For the man, it means facing the unpalatable truths about his own psyche, acknowledging the wounded boy, the tyrannical patriarch, the helpless victim, or the unfeeling automaton within. But for the woman entangled in this dance, it means recognizing the projection for what it is, a reflection of his internal landscape, not an indictment of her worth. You are not a mirror for his unresolved issues. Your purpose is not to be a repository for his discarded self. To truly empower yourself, you must understand this fundamental truth. His shadows are his responsibility, his journey, his battle. To step into their fray is to lose yourself in a war that cannot be won from the outside. The insidious nature of the projected shadow often leaves a woman feeling responsible for the emotional turmoil she experiences, as if she is somehow failing to meet an unspoken standard. You might find yourself constantly analyzing his moods, trying to preempt his outbursts, or striving to be perfect in the hope of finally earning his consistent affection. This desperate yearning for external validation, this unconscious attempt to regulate another's internal world, is a profound disservice to your own burgeoning self. It is the antithesis of self-worth, the bedrock of authentic female empowerment. For when your sense of value is tethered to another's fluctuating emotional state, you become a ship without an anchor, tossed by every storm. Consider the Stoic philosophers, men like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, who championed the principle of focusing solely on what is within one's control. While their teachings primarily addressed internal fortitude in the face of external circumstances, their wisdom resonates powerfully here. You cannot control another's shadow, nor can you force a man to confront his own psychological demons. His journey into his unconscious, his process of individuation, is deeply personal and often fraught with resistance. When you attempt to fix him, you are inadvertently enabling his avoidance, preventing him from facing the necessary discomfort that precedes genuine growth. You are, in essence, becoming an extension of his avoidance strategy, a proxy for the work he refuses to undertake. The masculine unconscious is a vast and mysterious landscape, often shaped by societal pressures that equate emotional stoicism with strength and vulnerability with weakness. This cultural conditioning often compels men to repress their feelings, to bury their pain, and to deny any aspect of themselves that deviates from a rigid, often toxic ideal of masculinity. The anima, Jung's term for the unconscious feminine aspect within a man, is often where these suppressed emotions and sensitivities reside. When a man refuses to engage with his anima, when he denies his own capacity for empathy, intuition, and emotional depth, these energies do not disappear. Instead, they can become distorted, manifesting as emotional unavailability, a fear of intimacy, or a tendency to seek out relationships that perpetuate his emotional numbness. You may encounter a man who, while seemingly charming and accomplished, possesses a chilling inability to connect on a deeper emotional level. This isn't necessarily a deliberate act of cruelty. It's often the shadow of his undeveloped anima, a profound disconnect from his own feeling function. He may be drawn to you because your vibrant emotionality unconsciously mirrors the very parts of himself he has disavowed. Yet, as the relationship progresses, he may become uncomfortable with your authentic expression, projecting his own fear of feeling onto you, labeling you as too emotional or irrational. This is a classic symptom of an unintegrated anima, a man running from his own internal world, seeking solace in superficiality, or worse, trying to extinguish the very light that attracts him. The journey of detaching from this intricate dance of shadows requires immense self-awareness and unwavering courage. It demands that you confront your own unconscious patterns, the ways in which you may have been conditioned to seek validation through caretaking, or to derive a sense of purpose from saving another. It means acknowledging the seductive pull of the rescuer archetype within yourself, and recognizing that true empowerment lies not in mending broken wings, but in cultivating your own soaring strength. This is not about blaming. It is about reclaiming your agency. It is about understanding that your emotional well-being is not contingent upon his transformation, but entirely dependent on your commitment to your own inner peace. The relentless pursuit of external validation, whether from a man's approval or his emotional stability, shackles you to a prison of his making. This is a profound trap for the feminine spirit, which instinctively seeks harmony and connection. But true harmony cannot be forged in the crucible of another's unresolved chaos. It must first be cultivated within your own sacred inner space. The Stoic wisdom, particularly from Epictetus, echoes this truth. We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. This is not about indifference to another's pain. It is about fierce self-preservation and the unwavering commitment to your own psychological sovereignty. You are not responsible for carrying the burden of his unexamined life. The man who refuses to look inward, who consistently projects his insecurities and fears onto you, is essentially inviting you to participate in his avoidance. He may unconsciously derive a perverse comfort from this dynamic, as it momentarily deflects the uncomfortable truth of his own internal disarray. But this comfort comes at your expense, draining your vitality, dimming your light, and eroding your authentic self. To truly empower yourself, you must sever these energetic cords, not with malice, but with a clear, calm conviction that your peace is non-negotiable. This brings us to the crucial concept of trauma psychology and its pervasive influence on relational dynamics. Many men, often unconsciously, carry the unhealed wounds of childhood trauma, be it neglect, abandonment, or emotional abuse. These early experiences can deeply impact the formation of the ego, creating defensive mechanisms that manifest as the very shadows we are exploring. A man who experienced profound emotional deprivation in his formative years may struggle with true intimacy, equating vulnerability with catastrophic loss. His fear of being hurt again can cause him to push away genuine connection, or to seek partners who, by virtue of their own unresolved patterns, unconsciously perpetuate the familiar, yet painful relational dynamics of his past. When a man's trauma manifests as emotional unavailability, passive aggression, or even overt hostility, it is easy to internalize his behavior as a reflection of your own inadequacy. You might find yourself asking, "What did I do wrong?" Or, "Am I not enough?" This self-blame is a direct result of the projection, a tragic testament to the power of his unaddressed pain to distort your perception of your own worth. The key, then, is to recognize that his reactions are not about you. They are echoes of his past, reverberating through his present interactions. His inability to meet your emotional needs is a reflection of his own internal poverty, not a deficit in your inherent value. To reclaim your power in such a dynamic, you must first acknowledge your own emotional wounds that may have made you susceptible to this pattern. Did you, perhaps, learn in childhood that your worth was tied to your ability to fix or save others? Do you have an unconscious yearning to complete someone else, to be the missing piece in their fragmented puzzle? These are critical questions for your own shadow work. For just as he has his projections, you too may have an unconscious inclination to engage with men who mirror your own unaddressed desires for external validation or a sense of purpose through suffering. The dance is rarely one-sided. It is a complex choreography of two unconscious patterns colliding. Recognizing your own susceptibility to these patterns is not an act of self-condemnation, but one of profound liberation. It is the beginning of reclaiming your internal landscape, of pulling back the projections you may unwittingly cast onto others, and of seeing yourself with unvarnished clarity. This is the essence of true self-worth, a deep, unwavering knowing that your value is intrinsic, not derived from your ability to fix, save, or soothe another's troubled soul. It is a radical acceptance of your own wholeness, independent of external validation or relational dynamics. The man ensnared by his shadows will often seek to control his external environment, and by extension, the women in his life, because he is utterly unable to control his internal world. His outbursts, his criticisms, his emotional withdrawals are not direct attacks on you, though they often feel that way. They are frantic attempts to regulate his own chaotic inner state. He is, in essence, trapped in a self-made prison of his unacknowledged pain and fear. The more you try to penetrate this prison, the more walls he may erect, or the more desperately he may cling, creating a suffocating dynamic that leaves you gasping for air. Jungian psychology teaches us that the path to individuation for both men and women involves a conscious confrontation with the shadow. For a man, this means acknowledging the parts of himself he has deemed weak, shameful, or unacceptable. It means integrating his vulnerability, his capacity for genuine emotion, and his innate need for connection, rather than projecting these aspects onto the women around him. This is an arduous journey, fraught with resistance, for it requires dismantling the very structures he has built to protect his fragile ego. But it is the only path to true psychological maturity and the capacity for authentic reciprocal love. You, on the other hand, are called to a different, yet equally profound journey. Your empowerment lies in understanding that you cannot embark on his journey for him. You cannot illuminate his shadows if he refuses to open his eyes. Your role is not to be his therapist, his mother, or his savior. Your role is to be unequivocally and unapologetically yourself. This means setting clear boundaries, not as acts of punishment or manipulation, but as declarations of your own inherent value and your unwavering commitment to your well-being. It means recognizing that an unstable foundation cannot support a stable structure, and attempting to build a healthy relationship on the shifting sands of another's unaddressed trauma is an exercise in futility. Consider the wisdom of the Stoics once more. Marcus Aurelius spoke of finding tranquility by focusing on what is within your power. Your emotional freedom is entirely within your power. Your decision to disengage from destructive patterns, to prioritize your peace, and to cultivate a life that nourishes your soul are all choices you can make, regardless of another's actions. This detachment is not coldness. It is clarity. It is a profound act of self-love, a recognition that your own inner harmony is a sacred trust. When you cease to chase, to fix, to cajole, you create a vacuum, an empty space that can either compel him to face himself, or, more importantly, create room for something healthier to enter your life. The act of detaching, of stepping back from the intricate web of his projections, is not abandonment. It is self-preservation. It is a radical assertion of your own sovereignty. For too long, women have been conditioned to believe that their worth is tied to their ability to nurture, to mend, to sacrifice. But true feminine power doesn't lie in self-annihilation for the sake of another. It resides in the fierce protection of your own spirit, in the unwavering commitment to your own growth and fulfillment. This is the ultimate act of empowerment, recognizing that your emotional well-being is not a luxury, but a fundamental right. When a man consistently refuses to engage with his own shadows, when he perpetually projects his internal chaos onto you, he is, in essence, demanding that you carry his burden. He is asking you to sacrifice your peace for his comfort, your authenticity for his denial. This is not love. This is a subtle form of emotional vampirism, draining your energy, clouding your perception, and slowly eroding your sense of self. The longer you remain in such a dynamic, the more deeply entwined you become in his unaddressed pain, making your eventual disentanglement all the more challenging. This is where the principles of modern trauma recovery intersect profoundly with Jungian insights. Just as a man's unhealed trauma can manifest as destructive projections, your own responses to these projections can be rooted in your past experiences. Perhaps you learned, in childhood, that love was conditional, tied to your ability to please or to manage the emotions of others. These early imprints can create a powerful, unconscious pull toward relationships that mirror these familiar, yet ultimately harmful dynamics. Breaking free requires not only recognizing his patterns, but also courageously examining your own. It demands a deep dive into your own inner landscape to heal the parts of you that might be unconsciously drawn to the drama of unaddressed shadows. The journey culminates in a profound act of emotional freedom. This isn't about becoming hardened or cold. It's about becoming discerning. It's about cultivating a deep inner knowing that allows you to differentiate between genuine connection and projected chaos. It's about releasing the desperate need for external validation, understanding that your worth is not granted by another, but is an inherent quality of your being. This liberation allows you to stand firm in your truth, unswayed by the shifting sands of another's unresolved psyche. You reclaim your energy, your focus, and your narrative. The emotional space that was once consumed by trying to understand, to fix, to appease, becomes fertile ground for your own growth, your own passions, your own purpose. This detachment is not an end. It is a powerful new beginning. It is a rebirth into a state of inner peace, a tranquility that stems from knowing yourself fully, honoring your boundaries, and aligning with your deepest values. When you truly embody this self-possession, the dynamics around you begin to shift. You no longer attract the same struggles, for you are no longer vibrating at the same frequency. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase. She chooses. The end. Thank you for watching.